Hey, good morning, guys. Rich here with Thrill the Treasure. I'm going to an appointment this morning, so I thought I'd do a quick video, or audio, I guess, audio slash video. Kind of piggybacking on last night a little bit. If you hear turn signals or windshield wipers, it's raining a little bit here in Indiana. Try to ignore that. I'll check the audio before I post it, make sure it's not too annoying. But just want to kind of get a little bit more out there. In my introductory video, I kind of talked about how I kind of look at a couple of things. I look at the map or the poem, and notice how I said map accidentally, which that's really kind of how I look at the poem. I know a lot of you guys do as well. To me, the poem is a map. It's just a one-dimensional map or whatever. And I look at that, and then I also look at what Forrest says, anything he said that tried to eliminate area on the map. Search area. So I want to kind of focus on the poem and the map, kind of go away from the quote thing on this part of it, whatever. I think that when I said one-dimensional, that's really kind of a good way to put what I want to express. When I first started the chase, I think because I looked at Google Earth, and I know that Google Earth can be three-dimensional. Okay, we can go down there and get in there, but I think that most of us still get kind of used to seeing everything in two-dimensional. We see a flat map. So whenever we think of ourselves solving the poem, instead of seeing ourselves there or in three-dimension, we actually revert back to two-dimension. We're on top of the map. So down is south, up is north, if that makes sense. I think it does. If you really think about how you see yourself and how you do your solves, what do you tend to gravitate towards? So when I flipped up the map or the poem up three-dimensional and looked at it that way and used my imagination, it really changes things quite a bit. It's not easy to do, but if you do it, you'll see that you can definitely see things differently. So, for example, the first example in the poem is take it in the canyon down, not too far, but too far to walk. So, if you're kind of ingrained in the two-dimensional thinking, when you hear and read "take the canyon down," you immediately visualize yourself getting to the start of a canyon and taking it south, right, down, because that's down. That's how we're brainwashed into thinking that's down. Is down, but it's not elevation down. Okay, so here's a good example. What if the canyon started and ran north, but the elevation was down from north to south? Or excuse me, south to north. Sorry, south to north. Let's say like this: the start of the canyon sits south, and it goes down north. Okay, there's a good example. So we're thinking two-dimensional when we should be thinking three-dimensional, and elevation. Elevation's the key to this. Okay, that's the whole point. Now, when it says too far, not too far, but too far to walk, that obviously is a long distance. But still, that's just an example of a possible way to interpret the poem differently that can make completely different places pop out. Another really, probably the biggest three-dimensional area of the map or the poem that could change up a lot is put in under or below the home of Brown. Okay? That is massively huge because, again, when I think of that, when I first started solving the poem map, I would automatically think south of the home of Brown. So I'd look for a home of Brown, or a mountain, or a cabin, or a person, whatever, and then look south, put in under. Or if I was thinking three-dimensional to some degree, I would think literally put under. So that's where the treasure's close by, under the home of Brown. But then when you read the rest of the poem, it takes you away from that area more. So it couldn't be put under the home of Brown. It's a little bit farther away. I don't think it's too far away, but it's definitely not under the home of Brown, physically under the home of Brown, as far as buried. Okay, so then I started thinking, okay, well, again, let's not drop that three-dimensional idea. It's put in below the home of brown. So where you're at is below the home of brown. So if you think three-dimensional, that's elevation again. So that means the home of brown is above you. Does it not? It can only mean one of two things. Put in below the home of brown. Since the treasure's not at brown and it's not buried, that's not what he means by under the home of brown. It's not buried under the home of brown. It's if it's buried, it's under the blaze. Okay? So, it doesn't mean buried under brown. So what does put under mean? Put in under. It either means put in under south, or it's put in under the home of brown, under it, literally under it. So the home of brown is above you. Now, whatever you think's the answer is going to affect your solve tremendously, of course, right? Think about it, because if the home of brown, if it's south of the home of brown, put in under, that means you got to go a distance away from the home of brown. If I'm right, and it's three-dimensional, and it's actually above the home of brown, you shouldn't go any distance south, or you're going to be away from it. And that's how I think people go past it, guys. I think people go past it because of this very reason. They're going south and not up. Up. It's under the home of brown. Look up for a home of brown. And that's what's cool about this poem. Okay, because I do believe, take the canyon down, I do believe that's south. And I think it's both. I think it's south and it's elevation gradually going down. Okay, so I think that's a combination. But the poem, that's where it gets interesting. You got to use your imagination, because when it comes to the home of brown, he's going back up. He's going back up, and then it makes sense, guys, because then the water high, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense at that point. Ain't no paddle up your creek. Okay, because he's going upstream, uphill. At that point, you don't need a paddle, or you would need a paddle, but you see what I'm saying. It's just, I'm saying that if you put in the three-dimensional and that you're going up to find the home of brown from wherever you're at the end of the canyon, then the rest of the poem, the high water and stuff, makes more sense. Way more sense. Man, there's so much I could say. I know when people say that, like, I don't want to give it away, that's my solve, and I always chuckle at that, because everyone thinks their solve is so right, and I'm catching myself doing that right now. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm probably going to end up giving it all away, because I think unless you're at the location, it doesn't really matter. But this is important stuff, really important stuff, everyone. I'm sure, like I said in my first two videos, that someone has posted this somewhere as far as two-dimensional, three-dimensional. And it's almost like we assume we're smart enough because we use Google Earth all the time that we're thinking that way. But think about it. Are you really thinking about it that way when you're doing your solve? I know I wasn't. So I'm going to make the next video on the home of brown, because now that I've told you that, in my opinion, it's a height above you, what does that mean? It means a lot. Okay, because it means that the home of brown, where it's at, it's got elevation to it, right? And the place that you're at it's above you, so it's not like it's above you 2 miles away. It's above you right there. So if something's above you, it's right above you. How is it above you? It's got to be on a mountain or some type of elevation that's pretty substantial to say up. I mean, it doesn't have to be, I guess. I guess it could be 10 feet, but let's be honest, it's forest. So it's probably up a ways, right? So that really helps with the home of brown, because it is in a place that's technically above the place you're just at pretty closely. There's some elevation to it. So, for example, a home of brown that's in the middle of no elevation or a city, that can't be it with my solve. There's only certain places the home of brown can be. Now, next video, we're going to take that assumption that it's height above us, and then we're going to analyze the words in that part of the poem, and we're going to pinpoint what brown is. Because it gets pretty obvious And I hate the word use the word obvious, because it's not obvious, or I'd be $2 million richer right now. But you guys get my point. I think you guys all get my point. So think three-dimensional, not two-dimensional, and that imagination comes into play. Then Forrest has told us to use that imagination. And I think you're going to be really excited to hear the next part of this on why the home of Browns changes up when you put it in a three-dimensional instead of two-dimensional thought process. All right, thanks.